There we go. Okay. All right, now I should have sound. Sorry about that. Had a few minutes of silence there. All right, so let's see. Let me get the peoples in here. Let's see. Just sending out invites. Let's see. All right, so Animist, if you're out there, I just sent you a link through Twitter. Let me see who is in the chat here. Close. Oh yeah, hey Animist. So I just sent you a link through Twitter. And let's see if Star Dancer wants to join us. Let me see. Where is that going to be? Where is it? Very professional show here. I should have gotten started a little sooner, but I had to scarf down dinner real quick. See, should be here. So that took me a little while. It's like, oh crap! I have 1 minute. Let me see. Where is? Ah, there she is. Okay. And there we go. And Star Dancer, if you're out there, I sent you a link through your Gmail. So if you're in the chat, let me know if you get that link or you don't get, or let me know if you don't get the link. And I'll figure. I think that's usually how I've gotten you in here, but let me know. And hello, Son of Solthus. How's it going? How are you doing today? Saw you in the premiere earlier, so glad you stuck around for the hangout. This is usually fun. At some point, the conversation will tilt towards squirrels, and I don't know exactly when that is. So, but at some point, it will go in that direction. Let me see. So fair warning. Okay. I hope everything is okay. Hope Animus can get in here. So, what did you think of the premiere? I don't know. I don't know if I like the premiering videos like that. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how much. We'll see if it draws interest. I find that people tend to kind of watch my videos at sporadic times because my videos tend to be kind of long, so they kind of maybe play them like while they're laying in bed going to sleep, or listen to them from a distance, or not listen to them from a distance, but just listen to them, period. So we'll see. We'll see how the premiere goes. So, oh, well, good. Thank you. Glad you liked it. And let me see. So on Wednesdays, I usually have a Patreon hangout. So that's what this is. This is a Patreon hangout. So hello, Animus. How's it going? So normally I would. It's just the. Oh, you know what? Let me check my audio.
Okay, am I coming through? Because I did some software updates. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yeah, I'm not hearing you, Animus, but you probably are hearing me. So let me just change. Yeah, my microphone. I have to change it. Sorry. I mean my headphones. There we go. Now I should be able to hear you. You there, Animist?
Okay, how about now? Am I coming through now?
Oh yeah, yeah. It wasn't on your end. It was on my end. Were you hearing
Okay.
me?
Yeah, I could hear you. I just
Yeah.
wasn't sure what the cause was. I just got a new operating system update, so I'm not sure if everything's working yet or not.
Oh, they switched all your zeros to ones.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe that's why the screen is black with white letters.
That's what computers break down to at the most simplest
Yeah,
explanations is zeros and ones. So
yeah, exactly.
I wonder what would happen if I don't know. I mean, they'd have to flip every single one of them the opposite, but it would be. I wonder what would happen if the computer just suddenly just flipped all the zeros and ones. What would happen?
Well, it would get really hot. That's one of the things that happens when you do that.
Mm.
That's a good question. I think it would just be nothing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, or the universe would start running backwards. We'd all be made of antimatter.
We'd go from a great expansion to a great crunch.
Right, exactly. Suddenly we'd just be going backwards in time. At least we'd know where we're going at that point.
Yeah, that's true. You know, if you know,
We'd be heading back to the 1950s. Oh my God.
you know, think about this. This is some really funny stuff. But what about if, like, at that point when the universe went to a certain point where it expands, and then it stopped, and it started going in reverse time, and everything started going in reverse, and we're so used to it that it just becomes like a normal part of our life. So we're like living our life like we're living it right now, but in backwards.
There's a great Red Dwarf episode about that.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
I don't know if you ever caught the Red Dwarf show. It's kind of a cult classic BBC series. Vaguely sci-fi, not really, but mostly funny. But they did an episode where the crew of the ship went to a planet where everything was backwards. Everything went backwards, and they had a lot of fun with the cameras.
Mm-hmm.
People, eating stuff in reverse.
Yeah, it sounds like a fun premise, but of course, over time, the premise would just get old. You know what I mean? Because everything's going in backwards. But the idea of it, the concept of it, is funny. I like that.
Yeah, it was about good for a 30-minute episode, and then that was enough of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you couldn't exactly turn it into like a mini series.
Right, exactly. Although, to some extent, Dune was a little bit of that. But
oh, really?
In Frank Herbert had time that flows in both directions way ahead of most people. He got that.
Mm-hmm.
And the weirdness that can cause. But that's all really heavy stuff. That's on the heavy end of Dune, which is already heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But they messed with it during the miniseries even and kind of got away with it. They kind of pulled it off in the Children of Dune miniseries as stuff, the future influencing the past. That's always fun. It's all physics. It's all physics, man. I can't read the math, but I get the idea of it.
Yeah, well, that's like even Gene Roddenberry consulted with the I want to say physicians, but it's not physicians. It's physicists. Consulted with physicists, and for the jargon of how propulsion and all the stuff worked.
Yeah, so at least he understood what his spaceships were trying to do.
And also what was this and what was that and what would happen if such and such happened. And I mean, it's just that element of realism just adds to the show,
Yeah, it did. For as long as he was alive, and then the rest of the writers just failed to learn it. And the longer Star Trek went on, the less sense it made because they consistently kept hiring more soap opera writers who had no intention to learn Star Trek stuff.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
More into it.
That's television for you.
Right, exactly. Hey, how's it going, Leon?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I found my my headphones mint cord. Might as well join in.
Oh, good. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, because we don't hear an echo or anything, so perfect.
Okay, I know you talk about science fiction and such, but I just got off No Man's Sky, and I must say, that this game is bringing my love of ast- um, astronomy. Is the correct word?
Astronomy.
Yeah, it's bringing my love of astronomy back.
Hmm.
I don't know. I've always loved space games.
Sounds like you're kind of stepping away from your mic.
Oh, sorry, I fixed my bed. I had to fix my bed.
Yeah, because I think you probably got to stay close to that mic, otherwise you'll fade out. People won't be able to hear you.
My mic's attached to my headset right now.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's a movement of your head.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm curious. Why don't you post the Hangouts in Discord anymore?
Oh shoot! That's what I forgot to do. Yeah, I forgot to. I was gonna post. Yeah, shoot. I posted it on Patreon. I forgot to post it in Discord. Yeah, shoot. I'm so sorry. What happened was I got in from work, and then I had this. I knew I was having this premiere, and then I had to run out. I had to quickly eat something, and then I did this hangout. I completely spaced it out.
No, it's okay. To be fair, I was listening to the Odyssey on Audible for a bit. So.
Yeah, shoot. I got it. Yeah, I got to keep up with that with the Discord, because I got to keep up with the Facebook, the Twitter, YouTube, and the Discord. I got to hire an assistant pretty soon. Keep me aware of all this stuff.
I felt like I did a big thing just by getting my operating system updated. I think I can use the streaming technology on YouTube with the upgraded operating system on the Mac, but I'm not sure. I'm going to experiment with it and see if I can make content stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Via the streaming.
Do you have an older Apple, or what model is it? Do you know?
It's like a 2012 Mac Mini is what I'm running on right now, and it's what I'm probably going to be running on for a while, because I've got all kinds of things going on that are not new computers.
Mm-hmm. But 2012 isn't. I mean, in computer years, but it still could probably run streaming. I'm thinking. What kind of an internet connection do you have?
Good enough, I think. I don't know exactly. So I'll find out. I'm going to experiment with it and see if I can get it to work.
Because I think that would be the most important part, is having a good internet connection. Because actually, I really don't know the details, and I shouldn't act like I do. But well, you'll see. I mean, you could always try it out too. Play with it and see how it looks. And if it looks real choppy, you could try to tweak it from that point. And then if it just stays too choppy, then just realize, oh crap, I probably have to do something else.
Yeah, it's going to be audio only to start with, no matter what. So it shouldn't hog up the bandwidth too bad, because I'm not going to try to do something in 4K video. Oh my God, I have more resolution than your eyeball. You can't even see it. It's so high res. The human eyeball taps out at about 1K resolution. So everything else is just technocrats, kissing each other's butts.
Yeah, they're trying to get like this crisper, and I mean it's at this point it's just like, look, we've got the bigger, flashier, funnier, most awesome toy yet, and they're always pushing that. It's always something else.
So wait, me getting this HD TV effectively is pointless because my eye can't tell the difference.
Oh yeah.
Above 2K, you can't see it. It's got more resolution than your eyeball. And at 2K, you can just barely tell. But most of the media you're looking at, like DVDs, aren't in that resolution anyway. And so you're, But then I'm not real fussy about resolution. I don't freak out about it. Some people are real hyper into that. I pretty much know it's a video already, so I don't expect it to look like real life, actually. It's kind of like I also know it's pretend, so I don't argue with people about which Star Trek ship is better.
Yeah.
But there are people who make a career out of it.
I watch almost everything in 720, and I mean I've tried it at 1080, and 720 seems to be perfect for me, especially for the size of my monitor. It seems about right.
Yeah, unless you're sitting like 2 feet away from an 80-inch screen, you're not going to notice the resolution difference above 1,000. That's for sure. But yeah, I watch 720, and I'm on a like a 30-inch screen right now, and at 720p, it looks fine. Wow. It looks like real people.
Real people. Even me.
My Xbox's YouTube won't go. It'll go to 1080p, but it won't. It chugs at 1080. So I'm like, why bother? Welcome to slow internet.
Well, my internet is actually pretty good. I also just recently I had to upgrade my hard drive because it was getting really full. So I also threw in some more RAM, and I thought I would, like see this amazing improvement in everything. And so far it seems about the same, except I have more hard drive space. So, it's kind of an illusion that something is going to go suddenly faster or whatever. It doesn't really.
I do have a bit of a witchy question.
Witchy question?
I went to the local bookstore. I was going to pick up some books on tarot.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, okay, this is a local bookstore. It should be that with the back. Okay, they're expensive. So, is it normal for our books to be that kind of pricey? 25 plus?
I think there's... Oh, go ahead, Animist.
I was asking, should I go somewhere else?
Oh, I was going to say, if you're buying new books for a specialty field or a specialty hobby endeavor, whatever, then you can expect, because they're small print runs, you can expect cover prices of over $20. Kind of like textbooks, only not as bad. Because it's for a smaller audience. So the way printing works, the less you make, the more it costs for each one. If they're printing 1 million of them, then yeah, they can sell it to you for $8.99 or $12.99. But if they're only going to print a few thousand, then it's going to cost more.
I would imagine Silver Ravenwolf's little books should be cheap. So have a I've seen around.
Yeah.
Ride a silver broomstick or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand that it's become a business. I mean, the witchcraft, new age, whatever you want to call it, movement has become commercialized. It's been becoming commercialized since like the 80s, and people make money. They write books, they do seminars, they do readings. It becomes a money-making business. So and I'm not knocking people. I'm not knocking them for doing this, but a lot of people on YouTube, that they're in it for the money. I'm just going to put that out there. Maybe they wrote a book, maybe they recommend books, maybe they do tarot readings, maybe they have a little witchy shop on the side or an Etsy store or whatever. And again, I'm not knocking people who do this, but just be aware that, it is a business. So if you're looking at tarot or you're looking at books out there, there are people putting out books, and in my opinion, you really only need probably like a $5 book on tarot that you can get. Even most tarot decks even have a booklet that comes with it, so you don't need a tarot book. And that little tarot pamphlet will explain everything about how to do tarot and everything. So if you're interested, all you really need is just a tarot deck, and you pretty much have everything in there.
I have like 3 plus Cunningham's book.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking. I've got Loki called it academic Wicca.
Academic. Okay.
I knew I was gonna laugh at you, but more or less the study of witchcraft, but not the actual practice.
You mean like the history of it?
Yes.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I think that's definitely a very important part of it, because if you look at the history of it, you understand how it's evolved and how it, yeah. I think history is really good, because you also get a very good foundation of you get a good foundation of witchcraft, because I think, again, a lot of people write books and they take the information, they regurgitate it, they slap in their own theories and ideas and concepts. And again, that's subjective, because you could even say that back then Cornelius Agrippa, or whoever, was throwing in their opinion and their idea and their own concepts. So, you know it's subjective. you know so you never really, it depends upon what you're looking for in studying witchcraft. I mean, some people study witchcraft because they think that they're going to be able to wiggle their nose and wave a magic wand, and $100 or $1,000,000 will appear in front of them, and that's just not the way it works. And then there's other people who are just like into being spooky and scaring people and having skulls on their altar and going, "Ooh, look at me, I'm a dark witch. I've done all this dark work." And it's like, yeah, okay, that's you're you're a little emo kid with an attitude. And then there's people who take it seriously. They're looking into it because it speaks to them. It's something that they're very interested in. It's not that it's not really that witchcraft is what they study as much as it is what it is that they believe in, what they study inside of themselves just happens to be called witchcraft. So that's another way of looking at it.
And this is going to sound silly, but also it's an excuse for me to collect very fancy notebooks.
What was that?
I say it's an excuse for me to collect very very fancy notebooks.
Oh yeah.
I have I bought, because I wasn't going to spend $30 on a Gucci book. I bought a $12 marble cover notebook from a bookstore, and I'm like, this would do. It even has dates on the top. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, maybe I was a little too harsh on a lot of writers. I mean, there's a lot of writers who write some good books, a lot of good information. For example, Venable Wen. She wrote a book on Chinese magic. I mean, I'm simplifying it because it's not essentially Chinese magic, but that's what it is, and that's something that wasn't really known too much. I mean, definitely when I was growing up, I didn't study it. I mean, I heard about it, but I never really studied it, and so that was something that was very interesting, because it's new information, and it's grounded in history and tradition and ritual. It's not just made up. And again, there's nothing really wrong with somebody who makes up their own tradition based on whatever. But it is nice to understand that if you follow the rabbit trail, there's actual history to it. Most practices, you can follow the rabbit trail back a couple of leaps, to Gerald Gardner or Cecil Williamson, or somebody else, and you can trace it back to that point, and then from there it's kind of like mysterious, like, did somebody teach them or not, or were they part of a family tradition or whatever. But you can also kind of study the Western occult tradition, and you can see the trail, and it goes back very far, and so that's a legitimate. It has history in our culture. It has a what's the word I'm looking for? It has that kind of group mind, attached to it. And group mind's a bad word. I'm trying to remember what it was called.
Tradition?
No, it wasn't tradition. It was Yeah, I think it's a Jungian term. Not universal consciousness, but shit.
Oh, collective unconsciousness.
No,
Not that
yeah,
either?
sort of like that. Sort of like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's been lurking around the people for so long that they've kind of become a part of it as much as it's a part of them.
Yeah, exactly. It's, you know, there's yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. So
The life of ideas. These ideas have a life of their own. You're feeding the meme.
mm-hmm.
Well, you kind of are, you know.
Well, I mean, it's different from practicing something that you just stumbled upon. Like, let's say somebody who gets into Buddhism or Hinduism. You know, let's like somebody comes from Western European ideas and philosophies, whatever, and they kind of go over and they get into this Zen Buddhism or whatever. But they're exploring another path to spirituality or a path to way of looking at life, and that's kind of, you're looking into another culture to do it, which there's nothing really wrong with that, but in our own culture there's a lot there beyond Christianity or Catholicism or any other Abrahamic branches of Christianity, you know. And it's a shame that a lot of it was erased, not valued. They tried to essentially wipe it out. You know, if it was a wipeout on purpose or a wipeout some other way, I don't know. There's people who argue back and forth about that. But anyhow, it is a part of our culture and our tradition going back, you know, pretty far. And it's just a shame that now it's relegated to a small section in a bookstore somewhere called the occult. You know?
Right. Here's 30 totally vibrant cultures that have turned into one little shelf.
Right, exactly. And then in there, yeah, there's stuff about the Norse and, you know, the Celts and the Romans and the Greeks, you know, whatever. Go study that on, you know, go to the library and read about that, you know. But yeah, it's just kind of a shame. That's how I look at it. But I think there's a really big pagan revival right now, and I'm excited about that. I think that people need to get back to their roots and understand where they come from and who they are, and having pride in one's culture and oneself. There's nothing really wrong with that, as long as you just realize that you're just one of many cultures that live on this planet. You know, every culture's been great. Every culture's donated a great deal to all civilizations, at least the one that survived till today, because there's a lot of cultures that didn't survive up until today.
And some of them we won't miss too much. Some of them we will. Yeah, you know, I think we're better off without the Aztecs. I mean, the people are still here, but we're better off without the Aztec culture. I think that wasn't going to be beneficial in the long run.
Well, I don't know that much about Aztec cultures, but for example, the Etruscans, you know, they pretty much got kind of not really wiped out, but essentially just sort of evaporated and assimilated into especially Roman culture. But you know, they were a very interesting culture, and there was an Etruscan song you can look up on YouTube, and they translated it and tried to sing it into. Anyhow, if you look up Etruscan music, you'll probably find it on YouTube. This is interesting to listen to. I can't remember if they had deciphered how to pronounce the words or if they had translated it into English. So that's why I kind of paused for a second there.
Yeah, a lot of the groups that I listen to, they're just singing in whatever language they're singing in, and somebody in the comments will put up a translation from wherever it's from, and then we just appreciate what they're saying with the spirit they're saying it in. You get a lot of that in the Norse country where people can kind of pick out bits of it anyway. You know, even though the dialects are different. Hang on a second. Sorry, scratchy throat. I'm going to have to grab a cup of water in a minute. But what I've seen from the Norse heathens, I guess is the word. I don't know, but from the Norse culture, is they're basically saying, well, we remember what we remember from our family stories, and we've got what we've got in terms of what Eddas and what stories have survived, and that's great. So we know that much of what our ancestors made up, and so we're going to just take it from there, and it's ours. It's still ours. And so they're just going forward and re-exploring all the concepts, in a new generation, just the way they did back when, from one region to another, one generation to another, the stories would kind of, evolve, and everybody was okay with it. Mm-hmm. And they're building municipally funded temples to the Old Norse religion in mm-hmm. Scandinavia now, the money's actually being put up by towns. And so it's kind of like, beware, we're coming back. We laid low for a while and we're done with that. And so there is a real big reclaiming of their old roots going on in the north. Mm-hmm. But those were the places where they were the least wiped out in the first place. Mm-hmm. They never really apologized. They kind of went, well, they never apologized for being them. They said, they all joined these other churches because it was part of the trade and part of the empires and whatever. But they never said, they never turned their back on who they were per se. Mm-hmm. They never let the stories die out completely. Yeah. And so it's very easy for it to come back up there because it wasn't that far gone in the first place. And
how far north are you talking about here?
Oh, Germany and northward. I was talking about Europe in particular, but there's old ways families in North America too, and they're never entirely went away. And there's towns in parts of general center, north central part of the United States where they only started speaking English during around World War II. And only. And between the world wars, they started speaking English. And, but before that, they were still speaking Germanic and Scandinavian languages. And they never stopped necessarily speaking their home tongue. Mm-hmm. And there's still people who are still speaking. There's some towns where the language on the street is still German, because everyone still raises their kids knowing it. Mm-hmm. I mean, mostly small towns, but they never completely converted to the American English pop culture.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my cousins would get as a favor, he would translate business deals for some of the German-speaking people with some of the non-German speaking people who wanted to do business with them. And so that gave him a little bit of prestige among the home folks that he could still do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I enjoy a Reconstructionist approach. I don't think there's any way we can turn back the clock and exactly practice as our, whatever time period you're looking at. Like I look at mostly the pre-Christian era, but trying to look back into the past and figure out what people practice, I think that's much more difficult rather than just taking what we kind of understand right now and what new knowledge we have and what's kind of, because they're constantly rewriting history. Like they find out about a new culture, or they find a new grave site, or some new information pops up, and it kind of changes our perception of how we perceived our various ancestors of various cultures. But I think that keeping oneself open to that is important when approaching a culture from a Reconstructionist position, so that you can, like, if they find out new information about the Celts, the Norse, or whatever, not the Norse, they shouldn't call them the Norse, about Iceland or Scandinavia, they find out something, and then people kind of incorporate that into their practice, even if it kind of goes against maybe what they believed for a long time, or you know what they assumed or whatever. Even if it goes against that, they should still you know, hopefully accept it, and maybe even change their whole practice if they have to. But if that's what they really want to do, is to find a realistic reconstructionist approach to it, you know, I think that's good.
Well, it has to be updated anyway, because you don't want to go back to practicing the way they practiced 1,500 or 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're back to the rights of Uppsala. So, you have to update it with what you've evolved into, and it has to evolve with, it has to evolve with you. And that's the beauty of a living tradition. When you learn something new, the tradition can evolve to incorporate that, because it's your tradition. It's not some foreign, you know, those people 1,000 or 2,000 years ago, they weren't foreigners. They weren't gods. They weren't, you know, any better than we are. They were just our ancestors. And so, yeah, we have a much better idea of how the cosmos works now. We know that the rainbow bridge doesn't actually go to another dimension. It's just a prismatic effect through the raindrops. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's still a good story to tell the children, but it's not something you would put down as serious theology at this point.
Right, exactly. So I guess I won't be dressing up in a druid costume and going door to door and asking for virgin sacrifices on Samhain.
Yeah, and we won't have to sacrifice goats to Zeus.
But only if you eat them.
Only if I don't know.
Only if they're part of the meal. No fair wasting.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that Bill Schnolin actually said that in the video. It's like, what, you think that a culture went around to every single house requesting a virgin, and if they didn't get a virgin sacrifice, and they took an animal, every single house.
You'd be depleting the neighborhood pretty fast.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care what kind of a religious stronghold you think you have on that society. I think they're going to kick your ass out of there pretty soon. You have to do what? Sorry, Leon, go ahead.
And even in a mathematical sense, that makes absolutely no sense. That assumes that every house every family has a virgin adult daughter.
Yeah, exactly. So. A lot of cultures, their kids didn't make it. You know, their kids didn't make it past puberty. You know, they died early. You know, mortality rates were very high. You know, back then, they didn't have healthcare. They didn't understand communicable diseases. They didn't understand infection. They didn't understand all this stuff. You know, you could be working in the field all day, get a nasty gash on your leg. Next thing you know, it's coming off, and you're probably not going to survive it. You know, and that's it. And you were what, 12, 13 years old. That was a good life. You know.
Yeah, and that was true until the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
So at no point in history could any people afford mass sacrificing of survivors, because you would just simply run out of people.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it would be self-imposed genocide. You would essentially be wiping out your own society.
Or livestock. I mean...
Or what?
Yeah, sacrificing a black cow to Poseidon once or twice is good, but wiping out a whole herd of cows with the gods, like, yay, the gods are happy.
Well, one of the theories about why, especially some of the Proto-Indo-European cultures had feasting times around like the period that we're in right now in the northern hemisphere, the winter time. You know, we have like Samhain, and we have Thanksgiving, which is not really, that's kind of a more that's a more modern holiday, but there's a lot of feasting that happens around this time. And one of the reasons they believe is because they would slaughter a lot of the animals that probably weren't going to make the winter, or maybe they understood that they only had X amount of food to last them through the winter, and you know, they would just, you know, and then occasionally kill an animal as they went along. But for the most part, they just most animals weren't going to make it through the winter, so they would slaughter them and have big feasts, because no refrigerator. You could salt it, you know, you could make salted pork and beef and try to make it survive, maybe even pickle it. But other than that, your meat's not going to last. So, you know, you might as well invite that tribe you used to war with and say, hey, let's get together and have a big meal.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. It's you got to either process it or you got to keep feeding them. And so that's why salt was such an important commodity, partly, you know, because it was the only way to. Now, if you're far enough north, yeah, you could just have a shed and just keep extra stuff in the shed and it'd be frozen as long as the bears don't break in.
Oh, but, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But for the most part, you're right. That's a big part of that. And it's also a good way to kind of stay jolly through the dark months. Mm-hmm. I mean, Northern Europe, which is something that a lot of people don't realize, Northern Europe is at a much higher latitude than you think of when you hear about their weather, because they have the Gulf Stream that keeps a relatively mild wind coming off the ocean, but it gets really dark for a really long time in Northern Europe. Mm-hmm. Paris, I think I checked once. In Paris, which you think of as kind of a mild climate place, is at the same latitude as Buffalo, New York.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
So it's not as cold, but it is every bit as dark. And so a lot of those winter light festivals and getting together for feasts and stuff, a lot of that is just to fight the depression.
Mm-hmm.
It's just to fight the darkness and isolation. Because, you know, especially if you're a farmer, what do you do all winter? And most people were farmers. You just sit there, you know, waiting for spring to plant the crops. You go stir crazy, start hacking up.
One of the things they did was tell stories. You know, that was a big part of that time of the year. Yeah, especially in the Irish culture, it was frowned upon and considered bad luck to tell stories during the summer months.
Yeah, there's work to do. You got to be out working the fields.
Yep.
Come winter time, you might as well tell stories because ain't nothing else to do but throw another bale of hay to the livestock.
Yeah, and it's fascinating when you start reading some of these stories, because you realize that each one of these stories leads into another story. So it wasn't just like, you know, you would tell a story today, you know, where it's just kind of like maybe it goes on for 15 minutes or 20 minutes and then it's over. It's like they had sagas, you know, like they could just go on for however long, you know, like hours on end.
Oh yeah, and then whoever has the gift for it makes up new ones. You know, it's like Marvel Comics. That was their Marvel Comics, and they're, you know, it's their superheroes.
Oh yeah, that was. You know
what I mean?
Yeah, that was something else when I heard about Stan Lee passing.
Oh yeah. That was a sad thing. I think he lived life pretty fully, though.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he loved his fans, and I think that's what I really took away from this one particular interview I saw of him. It was when he was up there in his age, and he knew he was probably going to pass, and so he took the opportunity to sit down and talk with a reporter and talk about, you know, his life and his legacy, and the thing that he thanked was his fans. He really, because his fans were with him, you know, when he and that other guy, just a couple of artists, were just like pumping out comics just like out of a little tiny room, you know. And
yeah, they pretty much kept the comic book industry alive for 20 or 30 years until the movie scene came around to it.
And he was also he was really, really progressive for the time, like creating the character Black Panther. That was a nod to a militant black power group, not really power group, but, you know, radical black group that was growing up in the 60s. They were called the Black Panthers, and that character was kind of a nod to them. And you know, he had female heroes, and which today, you know, it's like, oh yeah, well, who cares, you know. But back in the 70s, you know, that wasn't very commonplace. That was kind of rare.
Yeah, I think in the 70s there were two female heroes in the popular culture. There was Wonder Woman and the Bionic Woman, and that was about it. Now they're everywhere, which, you know, I think it's a good thing. Should be about 50%, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is off topic, but talking about telling stories and passing time. Last year, actually it was around this time, late November, I found my D&D group. It wasn't for them. And Dungeons and Dragons in general. I don't know what I'd do. So,
oh, you mean like for as far as friends go?
Friends telling stories and passing time, yeah. Come down to my show. So I truly believe in the power of storytelling. Especially during the winter.
Yeah.
Sucks because we didn't finish the story because our dungeon master had
yeah, well, definitely Dungeons and Dragons is one of those games that definitely helps. You have to have a good imagination to be able to play that game, but it also feeds your imagination. You know, it's like Lord of the Rings. You know, if you think about all the stuff that has come from the concept of D&D, you know, and I mean, humans who have fantastic imaginations are geniuses. I mean, they create things, you know. I mean, was it Leonardo da Vinci? I think he created all these very fantastic machines that were basically just imaginings. They were just concepts, but there's actual physics behind it, and they've used it as models for things that we have today, you know, like flying wings and what was the other one? And he also looked at the human body and put down a lot of detail in the human body. And people still look at that today, scientists, and it was very accurate, very, very well drawn.
Yeah, I think he inspired a lot of people to continue to pursue the truth and the functionality of nature as an endeavor unto itself. In a time where people kind of thought that rhetoric was truth and truth was rhetoric, he said, no, look, this thing has an actual functionality to it. There's a purpose. There's a reality to how this works, and that's worth knowing. And I think he inspired a lot of scientists and a lot of medical people to go back to nature and to let rhetoric be rhetoric.
Yeah. I mean, I've said this before on my channel. I think you have to have a balance in yourself. You have to have a balance of, you know, that fantasy world imagination, and then that grounded in reality and understanding how, you know, how reality is and how things work and how they function, and that kind of analytical part of our brain. And you have to keep it in balance. And I think for the most part, most people do, you know. Sometimes I think people, you can go too far in either extreme, in my opinion. I think you can go on the extreme where you're too way off in fantasy world, and then there's the thing where you can just be too over analytical and just too, you know, factual. And you know, that's just how I view things. But it is I don't know if it's all that hard of a balance to achieve, but I think most people do achieve it. Da Vinci camera is pretty cool. So Totally Metzi says the giant camera in San Francisco is a Da Vinci camera. So camera obscure. You know, I actually haven't seen that, Mitzi. I should go and take a look at that. Do you know where that's located at? Because that would be fun to see it. There's a lot of tourist places in San Francisco I still haven't seen. Like I still have not been to fucking Alcatraz yet. I've lived here for like 30 years and I haven't been to Alcatraz.
My question is, why would you want to?
I don't know. I mean,
obviously you don't, but I mean, I'm trying to think of why. So other than morbid curiosity, why would somebody want to tour a closed prison? What could there possibly be of entertainment value in that? I mean, people are welcome to any hobby they want. I'm just saying, I don't get that one.
Hey, when I was going to school, I was working at hotels here in San Francisco as a concierge. And there's people spend a lot of money to go to Alcatraz and go up to the vineyards and go on these tourist buses in San Francisco. So people want to see it, you know. So, but I mean, I was even offered, like, I could have gone on one of the tour buses to, you know, they offered it to me, like, if I ever want to go for free. I still never took advantage of it. I probably should have when I had the chance.
It's a jail. There's absolutely nothing.
I know, right?
But like I said, not taken away from people's fascination with whatever they're fascinated with. I knew one guy who was fascinated with abandoned buildings, and he would travel 100 miles or a few hundred miles sometimes, even if he had to hitchhike, to go see abandoned facilities or abandoned buildings. He spent quite a bit of time in Detroit, and because he was just fascinated by what they were like when they'd lost their purpose, you know, when they were no longer imbued with the sort of the life of a building. What did they become? You know, it was a fairly melancholy kind of pursuit, but that was what he was into, and I couldn't fault him for it, because there is something to that. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's that image to us, seeing like a house that's abandoned. You know, I think that on a deep level that affects us, because it's you know, a house represents that sort of sheltering family kind of, you know, safety. And to see it like abandoned like that and neglected, kind of, it is kind of spooky and shocking and very, very. Man, I am a loss for words today. But yeah, I know the melancholy. Yeah, that's the one. The one you just said like 5 seconds ago.
Yeah, in one of the Doctor Who episodes, there was somebody who did that, toured abandoned places, and she said, "Sad is happy for deep people." Right. She was exploring the melancholy of abandoned places. It's like they still had function, but they had no purpose. You know, and so often it's the other way around, where someone there's a purpose, but it can't function. You know what you want to do, but you can't do it. Or you have a need, but it's hard to meet. And here's something that's the complete inside out version of that, where it has an ability that has no function. It's not doing anything. Or I should say, what should I do? Yeah, it has function, but it doesn't have any purpose anymore. And so I think in a way, it's kind of the ultimate joke. It's the ultimate punchline.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I don't know what's going on with this idiot and this whole Hampstead nonsense. I don't know what's going to happen with this. I'm wondering where this is going to go. I'm thinking it's probably, I don't know. I think it's probably going to. I don't know what this guy's doing. He's trying to make money off of this horrible thing that happened in England.
Well, I think you've done your sort of just due to expose the truth of the matter, and I think after that, there's really nothing more you can do except wait for, you know, entropy to take it.
Yeah.
And it's at some point in several years from now, when the kids become of age, they may have an interesting little memoir to write about the whole situation, and they may have some interesting things to say about the people who made it harder on them.
Right. That's true.
And hopefully they'll sell a ton of copies and be able to afford, you know, good therapists and some time off to recuperate.
If not a therapist, at least a nice big fat tab. Yeah.
One or the other, whatever. But, you know, hopefully at least that since it's become so publicized, that there will be people who provide them with the care that they need after going through that kind of crazy situation with, you know, there's a lot of kids who go through hell after a divorce or a breakup of their parents.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
And so this could become a kind of a sort of worst case scenario / best example of the need not to have kids get caught in the crossfire between, you know, couples breaking up.
Yeah, it's such a shame that kids get dragged through they just get torn apart by parents sometimes when they get into when they get into custody battles or divorces, and it's real nasty.
Yeah, so I think that's hopefully the important thing that will come out of it is the lesson not to let this happen to others, and not to play into the people who would use their children for that kind of leverage, because that just sucks. That just sucks for the kids for the rest of their life. And so many people, percentage of the population wise, have been there.
Yeah.
That's something that society at large needs to develop a value system about, that it doesn't really have right now. Right now, there's an awful lot, and the courts have tried to some extent to look at the rights or the welfare of the children, but the court only has the information it has to act on, and a lot of times everybody's lying, and the judge has to sort out who's lying the worst.
Right, exactly. It's kind of like there's not a lick of truth anywhere. It's all bullshit. Yeah. I think after now that I've done this video, I think I'm going to take a break from this. I'm going to try to kind of not take my channel in a different direction, but try to come to this from a different angle rather than doing these video responses for a while. I think I might go back to doing some of the PSAs I did, and some of those kind of more lighthearted type videos. I don't know really how to describe them, but not like these video responses, but more kind of like a joke video. For example, that one PSA I did, I don't know how else to describe it. Just kind of I don't know, almost like a skit, I guess.
Yeah, I love all those. Those were all the ones that you've done like that have all been great.
Like the one where someone answered the door thing. Do you have time to hear the news about our Lord and Lady?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, exactly, stuff like that. So
the flying spaghetti monster at the door. That could be fun. That could almost be done as an interview style format. If you got somebody from one of those groups to sort of from any pagan group, you could almost do a conversation at the door between you and various people from other pagan paths.
Well, actually, there is something that I actually do want to talk about and expose, and that is CSA, which is a very serious problem, that is Christian ritual abuse. Not CSA, CRA. See how tired I am?
Yeah, that's a big, the report that you've often referred to from the FBI investigator. He basically, from the parts of the report that you've quoted on your other videos, he basically was saying the same thing. It's like, do you want to look at this? Because you guys got some stuff you do in the big mainstream religions that falls under the same banner. If you want to define these religious activities a certain way, this could come back and bite you in the ass for the way that you raise or treat your children on a regular basis.
Yeah, definitely. And so that's something I want to do. And the thing is, I don't know if I think I'm gonna approach it from a more joking angle than I am a serious angle, even though I know that it's it's serious, it's legit. There's been people who've raised money for it and talked about it. There's, I think, especially in the Catholic Church, there's been a lot of abuse of children, and apparently it happens in other congregations too. So I don't want to joke about something and then have people I don't want to joke about it in such a way where it's kind of like it's offensive to people who are actually suffering and recovering from that. So that's why I'm trying to figure out kind of how to do that.
Yeah, satire is a fine line to walk.
It is sometimes, yeah.
to the point where you almost have to put a label on the front of whatever you're doing or your skit that says satire, try to understand.
I might actually do that. I might have some kind of like a disclaimer or some acknowledgement of that this is a real issue, or something to that effect, so that people understand that I am joking about it. I'm not trying to troll people or be a Poe. I am, I'm approaching it from that kind of an angle. So I will probably do that. And I also want to get into doing more collaborations with people. So if people are interested in doing collaborations with me, please hit me up, because I also want to do collaborations with people, because it's fun to invite somebody else onto your channel, or to be invited onto their channel, or just approach a topic from a different angle. I'm waiting for this ambulance to go by. I don't know if you can hear it.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. Yep. Well, they got to do their thing. They're doing something really important. We're just talking.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But yeah, so I'm looking to do some collaborations with people. I think that would be fun.
I think you interview someone, and then they interview you on consecutive episodes would be a really interesting format. That's one that I would like to do if I could get that set up. Would be a such and such interviews a such and such, and then part 2 is the reverse.
Right.
Really, and just like pick similar issues, but have each person asking the question from their point of view, and then switch it around and have the other person asking the question from their point of view.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, sort of each person, even if you're talking about the same, whatever, whether it's general topic or a specific topic, and see how well you can answer each other's framework. I mean, you and I have danced around like this quite a bit, and there are certainly more concise ways, than just the kind of free form. I'm not going to say it, free form that we've had. But if you actually had a little outline that you could each follow while interviewing each other, that could be really fun.
Yeah, or you could even approach it from like you have a topic that you want to talk about, and each person gives their opinion on that. I like that. I like that style of a hangout too. Like I've done that in these hangouts before. Like we'll take a topic, and then each person kind of gives their own assessment of it, their own opinion of it, or experience with it, or whatever. And nobody like sits there and goes, "Oh, that's not right," or "That's wrong." I think people are still left to kind of decide for themselves what they relate to the most, or even maybe just internalize it and just digest it, or whatever they want with it, or just leave the information there because they just don't it doesn't resonate with them. But I think it's interesting to get different perspectives on topics.
Okay, yeah, there are. Yeah, because the cool thing would be, it doesn't end up. It may not, or what I'm trying to say, within the sort of vaguely pagan spectrum, you could have the same topic and have two people talk on it, and it wouldn't even be this person or that person or versus that person. It could be two completely different frameworks of how to see an issue.
Exactly. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, that would be cool, because then it's not like a debate. It's like, here's two different ways to dice up this pie.
Right. Yeah, well, it's really hard. I mean, if you get into like a serious debate with people, in my opinion, you really kind of have to have your own facts in order. If you really want to prove your point, be prepared to defend your point, And I think that that's what some people, maybe they get a little ahead of themselves and they go in to debate somebody, and they're so busy attacking the other person's arguments or whatever. And if the person flips it around and puts it back on them, they're like, suddenly they don't have anything to say, because the tables get flipped.
Yeah, and there's so much about both mystery traditions and I don't know what to say, like my animistic tradition or raw nature tradition, that are experiential based.
Mhm.
You know, you can't describe it in words. You have to experience it to understand it. That is interesting. It would be interesting to hear people trying to compare notes on two things that can't be described perfectly in words until they think they understand each other. That would be another interesting thing to do in a short format.
Yeah.
I'm just brainstorming ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, that's why spirituality and beliefs and religion and stuff like that is subjective, because there's really no way you can kind of like, you can put it down, you can measure it, you can, you know, it has volume, it has space, it has weight, you know, there's no way you can measure it. You can't break it down to its most simplest components. You know, you can't break it down atomically or anything, because it's a subjective viewpoint. It's a way of looking at the world and the situations and looking at all these things. So it's a realm of the mind and the heart, I guess, is the best way to describe it, you know.
Yeah, it kind of has to be a little different for each person if it's real, because it's based on each person's individual relationship with the concepts or with nature. So I think in the general terminology of paganism or whatever, you almost would be suspicious if too many people were saying the same thing with each other. You'd think maybe none of them really knew what they were talking about, or they would have a more individual perspective on it.
Yeah.
Whereas in, you know, sort of big officials religions, they consider it a strength when they can get more people to say exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And
well,
to me, that's a sign of bullshit happening.
Yeah, and you know, this is actually a really good segue into another type of video that I want to do, or another PSA that I want to do it, and that is flip the tables on them and talk about how Christianity is actually the Illuminati, because they want to take over the world and they want to have one world religion, and that one world religion is Christianity. And then if you think about all the presidents we've had and all the people in power who have been Christian, and there's, if you want to start like comparing like the idea of a new world order or the Illuminati, and you compare it to Christianity, it's so fucking similar. It's actually scary. And that's an idea for a video that I'd like to approach.
That could be a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a really fun one. Well, when you have a religion that's based on politics, then it can't surprise you that the religion acts political.
Right.
And that's pretty much what it is. It's a religion based on politics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry.
Totally Mitzi says, I just plucked my eyebrows because I thought of your eyebrows and was like, those look good on you, not me.
Hey,
I don't know if she's talking about my eyebrows or whose.
Hellbound.
Yes.
I'm gonna head to bed. So
Okay.
good night, everyone, and thanks for the call.
All right. Sorry, Leon. Hope you didn't feel
it's
left
fine.
out.
Oh no, it's okay. I was just listening in.
All right, Leon. Well, thanks for joining us.
Anytime.
All right.
Good to see you.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. I like him.
Yeah. It gets late for him though. Some people have the early morning schedule. I don't right now. So I have slightly random schedule right now. I have to do what I have to do when I have to do it, but it's a little bit different every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I've just started these next few weeks. I'm going to be putting more hours into work. So I'm gonna try to work on these videos, and I'll try to put out some little ones here and there, but these PSAs, I don't know if I'm gonna resurrect the green screen or not. I might have to put that up for some of them, especially the CSA videos, or excuse me, CAR videos. I probably will have to put my green screen up for that. So So that will be coming back for those of you who have been wondering when I'm going to start doing green screen again. I probably will be doing that soon.
Whatever's fun for you to do, man. Just do whatever. If something occurs to you and you think that would be fun or that would be cute or I could get into that, do it.
Yeah. Well,
Do it.
well, the devil icon doesn't really work very well for a public service announcement. You know what I mean?
You kind of need that. You kind of need that. Oh God, checkers. You kind of need that checkers thing.
Mm-hmm.
Richard. Thing. Sorry, Richard. Sorry, Richard Nixon, 1950s commercial running for president or vice president or Congress or something. I forget what he was running for. And he did the first really sappy TV commercial by a politician. And it was him holding his little dog Checkers and speaking in a very profoundly sympathetic voice about he wants to make a better world, even for Checkers. He pioneered the sappy political bullshit ad in like 1952 or something like that. And for some of those, especially when you're doing satire, it'll play a lot better if you can be affecting those moods and those expressions, playing those characters live. Yeah, sorry. There's a bit of trivia from the 50s for you.
Yeah, no. I mean, I never knew that. So that's
there you go. There's a bit of
now I know
super obscure trivia. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
And this was Richard Nixon, the most cold-hearted bastard, But he did his little.
Yeah, I mean, propaganda has been a big selling point. I mean, it's still. We have modern day propaganda right now on Twitter and Facebook. People just haven't really realized what it is yet, but that's what it is. It's fucking propaganda. And it's basically the same thing that they were doing back then when television was first around, or even radio, So
yeah, it just takes a while for a new medium to draw the slime.
Mm-hmm.
It always starts out kind of culty and close, and we're all just the clever people who already know this stuff and no one else does, and it ends up being Pampers commercials and sleazy politicians.
Well, I think now what it is there's groups, like people get into groups on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and they kind of like they try to become like the majority and try to shift people's ideas or the way they're supposed to act or whatever they're supposed to do, and they basically try to impose their concepts onto other people. And I think that's the new form of propaganda that people need to realize, is that type of stuff in itself is the new propaganda, and that's just all it is.
Making things go trending, getting on the trending list on various
like making something huge out of really nothing. It's not that important. I mean, they've been doing that for. There was a person who shared on Twitter, the image of that boy from Syria who was all black from an explosion or whatever, and his hair was messed up, and he was sitting there on a chair, and they took a picture of it, and that got people into the war in Syria, and that was all staged. That was fake. That was propaganda. Oh, wow. Yeah, and so people get all riled up about that, and everybody's behind it, and everybody wants to be the good person, a virtue signal, and it's built on a lie, and people don't look behind the curtain to see the wizard there pulling the strings.
This is why I'm so glad I'm not plugged into pop culture any more than I am. I don't have to defend against stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just and it people are just so weird. I don't know. So I mean, hopefully, maybe also it'll lead to some kind of, I don't know, what they're going to regulate the news or try to make sure everything's accurate or whatever, fact check. And I mean, that's what reporters actually used to do, but nowadays they just copy and paste everything.
Yeah, they gave up on fact checking about 30 years ago,
Oh,
officially.
really? You think it was
officially.
long ago? I think it was more like maybe 15 years ago or 10 years ago.
Let's see. Let me count. The 90s for the New York Times, they officially abandoned fact-checking and factual stories.
Oh, really?
The editor-in-chief of the New York Times made it the official policy that it was more important to tell the story that we want told than to tell the truth. That was his official editorial policy. Was that it was so, and that was in the 90s, I think, which is then the New York Times almost went out of business as a result of losing all of their standing as a news source.
Wow.
They're now about as reputable a source of information as anyone else because of this.
And that was back in the 90s, huh?
Yeah, so I guess 20-something years ago, that was the official editor's position.
Yeah, that was if that, like, let's say if it was 1990, that was 28 years ago.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Mm-hmm.
I think about what I was doing then. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
The age creeps back in, man. Start to feel it.
Yeah, shoot, I was 21 28 years ago. No, I was 22.
Yeah, something like that. What little we remember of it.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I remember something in the 80s.
They were the best at times. They were the worst at times. Something must have been going on because I still got the scars. I was busy doing something back at the time.
I remember meeting my friend at the BART station. I remember going to San Francisco, and I remember going to the Mamuhay Gardens, and I remember seeing the bands. And then I remember waking up in somebody's house in Walnut Green. Now, between point A and point B, it's a little fuzzy.
That's pretty much the banner of the 80s, somewhere between point A and point B. That was pretty much what that decade was about.
This is a funny story. I remember a long time ago, me and this buddy of mine, we were it was like the sun was coming up. We were walking up the hill to go somewhere. I forget exactly where we were going, but we were walking up this hill in San Francisco. And we look down and we see a marble. Then we see another marble. And then we start seeing all kinds of marbles. We saw maybe like about 50 marbles just going down this street in San Francisco. And we looked up and there was like no sign of like somebody like pouring marbles anywhere. It was just like the most bizarre thing in the world. And we just like looked at each other just like, is this reality or what?
Right. You have a certain number of experiences and then you pretty much stop questioning things. You just go, well, that happened. Somewhere there may be somebody with a bunch of slingshots, making the marbles go over the top of the hill to roll down at you, but you don't care after a while. After a while, you just don't care. It's
exactly.
like, hey, look.
Then of course the joke is somebody must have lost their marbles.
Yeah, exactly. Some places have a rain of fish. We have a stampede of marbles. It's, it's okay. Just add it to the list. Stampede of marbles may occur. Reality is not what you think.
Exactly. Instead of like ped crossing, they have marble crossing. I don't
know. It's just a statue trying to form. They're just rolling along until they can become a sculpture. Oh, that may be revealing a little too much about my worldview, but
yeah,
because I'm okay with that. I'm okay with stuff that's that weird.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind. Reality gets to do what it wants to do once in a while. Most of the time, it rigorously obeys these patterns of physics. We call them laws. Yeah. These patterns of physics are rigorously obeyed for the most part until you look at them real closely and then it all goes to hell again. But, I think the universe once in a while just has a little moment for itself and does something interesting. And all you can do is applaud, kind of, okay, that was pretty good, universe. Nice. Mm-hmm. We're not going to put that in the textbook unless you keep doing it.
Yeah.
But as a one-off, you can do what you want. You can do anything once.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's why even in science, they have this rule about duplicating results, replicating results, because even they know, and maybe even better than almost anybody else, they know that anything can happen once.
Right.
The weirdest stuff can happen once, and you may never get it to happen again, and you'll never know why it happened that time, and you'll never be able to figure out what it was. But since it only happened once, you don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
You just say, we don't know. And if it keeps happening, then we'll worry about it. If it doesn't happen again, we're not going to worry about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then when they get into the point, they can take a theory and they can predict what would happen if such and such, and then they might not be able to prove it for a long time until they can actually get to the point where they can actually reconstruct or reenact or somehow have the conditions correct to be able to verify somebody's theory. So somebody has an idea of what should happen when such and such effect happens, and then they finally get to that point and they realize that theory was correct,
Yeah, sometimes it's a couple of 100 years before someone figures out how to make the universe do that on a regular basis the way you want to.
Yeah.
Sometimes somebody said this has to be the case, and other people, even though the theorists will say you're right, we have no idea how to make that happen. But we'll leave it.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, like for example, Einstein's belief of gravity distorting space. There was no way he could. There was no way that he could prove that. The only way was to be able to observe, a solar eclipse. Like you have a star behind the sun, and you're not going to be able to see that star until you can actually block out the sun.
Right, you got to get the right eclipse with the right star.
Well, yeah, you still have the same star. That's your constant. And so when they had an eclipse and the person covered it, the star was at a different position. So what it was the light that was going around the star being seen on Earth was being affected by the gravitational pull of the sun.
Right, because the star should have been hidden, and it wasn't, so they could tell the light was actually orbiting the sun just a little bit. But they had to wait for the eclipse. They're sitting there twiddling their thumbs going, okay, such and such a date, 1898, we're going to find out if this is true. And they just sit around waiting for the date. Because at the time, they didn't have space telescopes to do that.
I think, was that the Hubble telescope? No. There was a guy, he had to go down to like South America or something. He was in these really horrid conditions, and he had to bring plates and put the plates in there and then expose them to the light. They had to sit there and count with a stopwatch, like 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, or whatever, for X amount of seconds, and then pull the thing out, put another one in. And I mean, it wasn't as sophisticated as it is now.
Yeah, there was a guy who did traveling around the world trying to catch eclipses and hoping for good weather, because he'd travel for months and wait around for an eclipse, and maybe it was a rainstorm that day, and then he'd have to go to the next one. Now there's people who do that as a hobby. Mm-hmm. Bored rich people who just go to eclipses as part of their lifestyle. They fly around the world, stay in fancy hotels, and go see the eclipse. Yeah. So
a lot of those people are astronomers. They just really get into that.
Well, yeah, but there's just tourists who do it too.
Mm-hmm.
Just with their own money. They, it's like, where should we go to vacation this year, honey? Well, there's an eclipse in Buenos Aires. Oh, that sounds good. Mm-hmm. And they just go to every eclipse they can for years and years. They're like addicted to it. But yeah, like I said, everybody needs a hobby, even silly rich people.
I guess it's more of the traveling, because I mean, not to knock it or anything. I mean, it's a fascinating celestial event, but it kind of like you seen one eclipse, you kind of get the idea of what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's one of those club things. They're part of the Eclipse Club, a very exclusive Eclipse Club of people who can afford to be in it. I mean, it is really cool, but I have to admit, you've seen one, the next one, you go, yeah, that's what happened last time. The light got all weird, and then you sat there and said, oh, look, I can look where the sun is, and it's not there.
I just thought of the perfect slogan. It could be the Eclipse Club, and underneath it could be, our umbers are growing.
Jeez. That's ouch. That's it. You're doing the ad copy for my future religion.
Our umbers are growing every day.
Oh my!
Now hopefully somebody will make that meme.
Yeah. Oh, this is, and the fun thing is we're pagans. Anything in nature is fair game. So we can talk about anything we want as long as it's somewhere in nature, or could be.
Well, it has something to do with the natural world.
Yeah, it's all part of it.
Yeah.
I think if I were to do another church, the only church service would be a potluck.
A potluck.
That would be it. It would be a potluck, like a banquet, and that would be the whole thing. And then people just come and talk about whatever they want to talk about, or play games or whatever, and just have for your holy day, just have an all day hangout.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe have like a sort of like just a big open building with tables set up and just room for people to play games, read books, discuss stories, and everyone bring a dish, and we'll just kind of nibble all day, and that'll be our holy day.
Isn't that kind of what church is, really? It's just kind of like everybody just hanging out doing something until the next potluck.
Yeah. So I say do away with the rest. keep the potluck. Just keep the part that people actually come for.
I hate singing these hymns, but damn, that casserole is good.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Why do the torture part? Just go straight to the fun part. It's what they did in the old days. I mean, sure, somebody sat up and gave some little homily because it was the season or whatever. Okay, do that for the high season. Do the 5-minute homily for the equinox, and then get on with what you're getting on with. Mm-hmm. Because that was the town gatherings back then. I think that would be a good way to do it. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in Iceland with their new municipal pagan temples. Mm-hmm. Because the various towns in Iceland are all basically, and there's not that many towns in Iceland, but they're all getting their money together to build little traditional temples to the old ways, and it'll be interesting to see what they do there. Mm-hmm. So, but they're all under construction. They've got like 5,000 official members now, which, Iceland's only got 250,000 people in it. Mm-hmm. There was somebody got me to read a internal memo kind of article among Catholic priests who were talking about this disturbing new trend of paganism coming back and what that might mean for their church. Because they're worried about losing members to a religion that's more fun.
Yeah, right.
They literally, it was put that way.
Right. And then, of course, the inevitable virgin sacrifice.
Well, I'm not even going to go down that road. I think we danced that one once already. That's so because there's like 10,000 Catholics in Iceland, and there's 5,000 official pagans. They're a little concerned about as a minority religion in a country already. Are they going to lose more of the minority religious proportion of people? Because there's only so many people in Northern Europe who want to have anything to do with any kind of religion. Most of them, 90% of them, are pure secular.
It would be interesting. Like let's say they do become the majority religion. It would be really interesting to see what happens, like how the dynamic plays out. Like, are the pagans going to suddenly start making up bullshit about Christians and trying to make them look like awful, horrible people who go around drinking blood and sacrificing babies?
Right.
Or are they just going to be like, hey, you do your religion, we'll do ours, no problem. If you ever want to use our meeting hall, you're more than welcome. Just
right. If you can't afford to keep your church up anymore, you can come to our hangout place.
Exactly.
We only use it on Wednesday and Friday or whatever.
Exactly. Just wipe up your holy water afterwards, and we're good to go.
Right. I think not caring about Christianity one way or the other is the outcome that will result from that.
Yeah.
Is they just won't care. It's just that's somebody else's religion. The world's full of other people's religions. Mm-hmm. I don't think traditional Norse pagans need to have anything to say about Hinduism either. Mm-hmm. It's somebody else's religion from somewhere else in the world. Well, they're welcome to it, I think, is their attitude from what I've known of them. Which is basically how every single religion in the entire world views other religions, except for the two. Right. Well, I was going to say the big three, but really the big two. Yeah. Judaism's just self-involved at this point. They were pretty much.
And I think they're more accepting than Islam and Christianity.
Well, yeah, because they know who they are. I mean, at this point, the Jews know who they are. They have no designs on conquering the rest of the planet, and their religion does not involve recruiting other people to your religion,
right?
Unless you happen to marry them, unless it becomes literally a family matter. So they're not evangelical. So yeah, it's really, in the whole history of the world, there's only 2 religions that really had that going on that have survived. Yeah. I mean, the Aztecs were into converting people by force, but they failed. Or at least sacrificing all their neighbors until there weren't any left. And there's a hole in that Ponzi scheme. We need 100 sacrifices a day to make sure the sun comes up tomorrow. That was part of their religion. The problem being was at some point there's no longer 100 vulnerable people you can capture. So,
yeah, but I mean, again, I don't know that much about the Aztecs, but
yeah,
weren't those war captives, or were they their own populace?
It was war captives.
It was
okay. And anybody else who could, if you were caught being a criminal, I'm sure you were up on the altar next too. If you were found to be disposable, I'm sure you were disposed of. But it was mostly war captives. But they had a very high number of sacrifices demanded by their religion, like daily. It kind of spiraled out of control. So, but again, that's an example of one that failed that would have been bad also. They just didn't. Eventually they ran into people who could kick their ass, and so the Aztec expansion stopped when they met certain other people.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, but other than that, other failed ones, there's only really those 2 religions. And one is Islam is pretty much a response to Christianity in a lot of ways, in every way, really. It's a response to it. So,
well, I was just going to say they're so similar.
Yeah.
Very similar, Yeah,
the common roots. Islam was pretty much formulated as an imperial response to the Christian empire. It was banding together to control our side of the Mediterranean. And that's pretty much the way it goes. So, anyway, Norse heathens and all the ones that I know or ever have known have said, well, these are our ways. That's who we are. That doesn't have anything to say about people in Japan or people in Africa. It's not about them. It's about us. So it doesn't have anything to say about those people unless they want to show up for the party. And then they can show up for the party if they want to. We'll be having Norse party, which is really fun. So it's not so much tolerant as indifferent. It's like, we don't care. We're having a good time over here. If you want to join in, fine. If not, we don't care. We don't miss you.
Right. Exactly.
And so I think that's where it's going to go. But I don't think you're ever going to see a majority of the Norse population be any kind of seriously religious in any way again, ever, because they're kind of over it.
They're kind of over it.
They are. They're kind of over it. I think the ones that do it because it's fun. There's some aspect of ancestor veneration going on there, but mostly because it's fun. They have concerts, they have get-togethers, they have Stephanie showing up. Hey, Stephanie showed up. And I think that's the best way. I think if you're in a town and there's people from several different culture or philosophy streams, you should be able to go hang out wherever you fit in best.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
And because everybody has a different idea of fun, as long as you're not burning anything down that you can't afford to rebuild or that doesn't belong to you. I mean, if you want to burn your own place down, just don't try to make an insurance claim. That's about how far the Norse idea of personal freedom goes. You want to burn your own house down? Okay, it's your house. I don't know. It's up to you to build another one. Just don't try to make an insurance claim because that's fraud.
Right. Exactly.
That has happened before, where people have notified the fire department. I want a new house, but I don't want to. But I'm going to keep my lot, so I'm just going to burn my house down because it's the cheapest way to dispose of it. And the fire department shows up and makes sure the fire doesn't spread. We can't stop him. If he wants to burn, it's his house. If he wants to burn it down, it's paid for.
Right. And you're talking about in Scandinavia, they do this?
Oh, they've done that in America.
Oh,
People have done that in various places.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like if you have the ability and you have the means and you have the materials, why not just destroy
Yeah.
your house and rebuild it? I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah. Some people freak out about someone doing that. It's like, but you're destroying a house.
Well,
Yep.
yeah, I mean,
My house.
it kind of depends. I mean, like, are they going to use a bomb to blow up their house or burn it down? I mean, you can disassemble a house without having to burn it down. I mean,
I think in some cases there is a personal satisfaction in seeing the place go up in flames after years.
That motherfucker.
Right. After years of trying to keep the wiring together and the plumbing from leaking and the roof. It's like, fuck it. I'm going to burn it down and build a new one.
Actually, you're right. Yeah, that does have a certain amount of satisfaction.
Somebody who has fought the losing battle against an old place for about 20 years. They just finally go, that's it. It'll be cheaper to burn it down than to pay a demolition company. Damn
you, squeaky drawers.
Exactly.
That door that you can never quite get to just close, you know.
Right. You finally go over the edge.
You're like, that's it. I'm fucking burning this place down.
They keep the historical society out of here. This place isn't historical. It's just fucking old.
It's just old. It's old and smelly.
It's just worn out. Get a new one. Oh, I kind of let that one out. Yeah, I'm a little bit against people run around trying to impose historical status on places where the owner doesn't want it. Okay, this is my house. I own this. You want to make it a historical landmark and tell me I can't change the lawn? You buy it.
Yeah.
That happens in the Midwest. I don't know if that happens out on the West Coast, but occasionally these town, councils try to tell people what they can and can't do with their property.
No, I worked for a place that petitioned to get certain hotels in San Francisco to be marked as historical sites. So I know what you mean.
Yeah, and in some cases, like a hotel might invite that because that may give them certain tax breaks or something. It may give them some advantage or may help draw a crowd to the officially historic location. But for someone's personal home, it's inevitably a pain in the ass. So
Totally Mitzi mentioned something. She said, you said you were going to talk about squirrels at some point, so I am taking this opportunity to say I saw a fat little bronze squirrel sculpture today, and it was adorable.
I didn't bring it up.
No, but I put in the description box. I said we're going to talk about whatever, and probably at some point talk about squirrels.
Yep, but I was not going to be the one who brought it up. First rule of Squirrel Club is don't be the first to talk about squirrels. After that, the subject is wide open and we can't get away from them. The little buggers are everywhere. They're both adorable and nasty. They have that going for them.
You know what? Just because we mentioned this, I have to show you this video. And it's I think you'll like it. Let me see if I can get my. Sorry about the banging on my speakers there. If you heard that,
it's all good. Okay. Yes, we always end up. The squirrels end up somewhere. They're going to end up. We're going to end up having to have some kind of iconography. The little squirrel spirit, because they're kind of it's kind of the spirit of sociable, busybody kind of animal. Mm-hmm. It takes them a very limited, very small amount of time for them to meet all their physical needs. They got their hollow tree. They got their nuts they've collected and buried everywhere. They got food stocked up for months. At any given moment, they can just be hanging out, playing games with other squirrels. They got the whole leisure lifetime thing mastered. They really mastered it. I mean, it's a little harsher in the far north, but it's a little harsher on everyone in the far north.
All right, so let's see. Oops, let me see. Well, yeah, I'm getting something set up here. So let me see.
Going to try to present it through the Hangout.
Yes, because this is hilarious. You got to see this. Oops, wrong one. Dang it.
All right. That's it. It'll turn up. After the water skis video, I don't know what else there is. We'll find out.
Water skis video?
Oh, there was a squirrel who learned how to water ski.
Oh,
years
really?
ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it was on one of those. It was on TV programs and everything. But it was it was so cute. It was truly annoying, even to fans of squirrels.
Mm.
And, which I've never said I am. I've never said I'm a. Hey, there's someone who doesn't know what the Satanic Panic is. Good. I hope you never have to find out. The Squirrel Panic, on the other hand, we don't know. Could be
the Squirrel Panic.
Well, you
So
got the video on the Hangout.
So can you see my screen?
I can see your screen, but the YouTube feed isn't seeing your screen. Oh, now it is. Whoop. It's starting to go. Yep, there it is in the YouTube screen.
Okay. I got to show this.
Oh, God. Good Lord. Squirrels and cats playing in a tree. Is that a cat?
No, there were two squirrels.
Oh,
but there was
it's a black squirrel.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah, but there was this. Well, I can't find it now. But what it was somebody had redone this video. But what they did was they played this kind of like shock, sad music at the end of it, and just kind of like zoomed in on the one squirrel.
Oh boy!
You really have to see it. I just don't have time to find it right now. But if you look it up on YouTube, it's definitely worth a watch.
Oh boy! Well, there we go. We've had our moment. Brought to you by Squirrel Spirit.
Exactly. There you go.
There's a word from our sponsors. Of course, it's nuts. They love nuts. Oh.
Well, all right. I think I'm gonna wrap this up.
It's about sleepy time for you.
Oh, it was like sleepy time. No, I mean I'm still gonna be up for a little bit, but yeah, I'm gonna be hitting the sack pretty soon.
Well, I'm looking forward to any new videos you put out, of course. And I love all of your entertainment videos too. I think I've been saying for a while, I thought that the response videos were starting to be a drag on your mind. So
it's been that way lately, especially talking about this stuff, because it just, I mean, it's just draining. It's just emotionally draining. It's like, why are people making up bullshit about this? I mean, this case is just kind of, it's just really made me just, it's been a toll on me. And so I just, for my own kind of like emotional sanity, I just have to take a break from maybe that subject for a while. And I think it's really hard for people to quite understand, because my videos, especially when I talk about the satanic panic nonsense, it's not an easy thing for like somebody just to, come upon a video and sort of understand the whole context of it. They might think that I'm defending people, or you know what I mean, something to that effect. And that's something that I struggle with, trying to kind of give a whole larger picture to somebody even before they get into a video. So it's also difficult to really explain that to people, and have people understand that. If they don't have the context for it, they can become lost in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're having to like dig up the whole mess.
Exactly.
Instead of, but I think you can spend about so much time and get your punches in on some of those issues, and then you've kind of done your good deed, and all you can do is let it be there for people to find at some point.
Yeah, and also just the general burnout on it. It's kind of like, okay, so I have to rehash this again. Okay, it's not real, doesn't happen. There's been no proof for it. I mean, how many times can you say that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, even the best guard has to go off duty sometimes.
Yeah.
You got to have some you time. You got to have some time to enjoy enjoy issues that you can have fun with. So, I encourage it. I encourage diversion here and there. Sprinkle it in.
Yeah.
That's, I encourage, because your important videos are important. But I think for the sake of yourself and for not having it turn into an anchor on your total presentation of your channel and everything, I think
exactly.
it's good.
And it's also nice to kind of branch out and do something different and kind of just explore and, you know, just give yourself a little creative electroshock therapy, you know, just
Yeah,
kind
there
of,
you go.
you know, just let your creativity go in a different direction and just, you know, let that kind of energize you for a little bit. So I think I will be doing that.
I think those kind of videos are good at bringing people in too, because you know they'll come for the laugh and stay for the full content.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, Animus, as always, I really appreciate your support, and I really appreciate you hanging out. And
thanks for being there, man.
Yeah. And definitely, when you get your channel up and running, you can interview me.
Okay, yeah, that'll be my first interview. It'll be me interviewing you. That'll be once I get it figured out. I'll probably be doing some test things just to test. Yeah. But once I figure out how to do it, I may need your help figuring out how to do it during the interview. You might have to say go to the thing with the X and push the button. Now you're presenting. It's going to be first time. But yeah, my first serious content, trans pagan content episode's got to be interviewing you. Has to be.
Definitely. Yeah, and shoot, there was something I was going to say. Oh yeah, so I'm thinking about having the Patreon hangout on Wednesdays about once a month. Is that all right with you?
I'm glad anytime that you're up for it. Whenever your schedule allows, when I happen to catch you, that's great. I cherish every time that we get to do it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I might do that just because I know I've always been slacking off on that, and I feel guilty about it. So I decided, well, maybe I should just say do it once a month, and then if I do it more than that, you know, it's like extra. So, whereas while I was trying to do it every week, and that just got to be too much.
And there's only so many pagan issues we can talk about. How often?
And there's only so many squirrel issues we can talk about.
Right, exactly. Golly, hibernation season is coming. Even in South Carolina, it's down in the 40s tonight. So it's getting to be a non-squirrel time of year is what I'm saying.
Cool. So, all righty. All right. Well, thanks everybody in the chat. Thanks for hanging out with us.
You make us feel worth being here.
So we don't feel like we're just sitting here talking to each other.
It's good to see everybody.
Yeah.
All right. You have a good night.
All right. Okay. Take care, Animus. Good night, chat.
We'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.